The transport ship landed with a heavy thud on the metal platform of the Galactic Hunter Academy. Steam hissed from the engines as the massive doors opened. One by one, new cadets stepped out onto the landing pad. First came the Vorthok warriors. They were huge, standing almost 3 meters tall. Their skin looked like stone armor, gray and rough. They moved slowly but with power. Each step made the metal floor shake a little. Their eyes were small and dark, set deep in their large heads. Next came the Clary Scouts. They were the opposite of the Vorthok. Thin and fast, they moved like dancers. Their skin was pale blue, and they had long fingers that ended in sharp points. They looked around quickly, taking in everything at once. The Nexari mystics floated. Out next, they did not walk like the others. Their feet barely touched the ground. They had large heads and big eyes that seemed to glow with a soft light. They spoke to each other without moving their lips, using their minds to talk. Finally, the humans stepped out. There were only 4 of them among the 30 new cadets. They looked very small compared to the aliens around them. Han Mingi was the smallest of all. She was barely 18 years old and stood only 1.6 meters tall. Her black hair was cut short and simple. She carried a small bag with her few belongings. She looked around at the other cadets, but said nothing. "Welcome to the Galactic Hunter Academy," a loud voice boomed across the landing pad. All the cadets turned to see Instructor Gorvik walking toward them. He was a Thraxian, a species known for being the best warriors in the galaxy. He had 4 eyes, 2 on each side of his head. His skin was dark red, and scars covered his face and arms. He had been fighting for over 200 years. "I am Instructor Gorvik," he said, his voice carrying easily across the large space. "I will be your primary combat instructor for the next 6 months. Some of you will become hunters. Most of you will not." He walked slowly in front of the line of cadets. His 4 eyes moved constantly, looking at each new student. When he stopped in front of the Vorthok warriors, he nodded with approval. "Good size, good muscle. You might survive the first month," he said to one of them. He moved to the Kalari. "Scouts? Fast reflexes, quick thinking, useful for reconnaissance missions." When he reached the Nexari mystics, he paused. "Mind powers are helpful, but they will not save you when a void beast tears off your arm." Finally, he stood in front of the humans. Park Hyunwoo, a tall young man with broad shoulders, stood at attention. Lee Gune, a woman with intelligent eyes, kept her back straight. Kim Tae-young, who had natural leadership written on his face, met the instructor's gaze. Then Gorvik's eyes fell on Minji. She was so small that he had to look down to see her properly. "Human," he said, his voice showing no emotion. "What is your name?" "Han Mingi, sir," she replied quietly. "Speak up, cadet. Cannot hear you." "Han Mingi, sir," she said again, only slightly louder. Gorvik's 4 eyes narrowed. "What is your combat specialty? Close quarters combat, sir?" For a moment, complete silence filled the landing pad. Then several of the alien cadets began to laugh. The Vorthok warriors found it especially funny. One of them, whose name was Orcs, laughed so hard that his stone-like skin shook. "Close quarters combat?" Orcs said between laughs. "You are smaller than my arm, human." Even some of the other humans looked uncomfortable. Park Hyunwoo shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Lee Guan glanced at Minji with concern. Instructor Gorvik raised one hand, and the laughter stopped immediately. "Size is not everything, Cadet Orcs," he said coldly. "But it helps." He looked back at Minji. "We will see how long you last, human." Instructor led them into the academy building. The halls were enormous, built to accommodate the largest species in the galaxy. Mingi had to take 2 steps for every 1 step the others took just to keep up. The walls were covered with pictures of famous hunters. There were Vorthok warriors holding the heads of void beasts, Kalari scouts standing on the ruins of enemy ships, Nexari mystics floating above defeated robot armies. Minji noticed that there were very few humans in the pictures. The Galactic Hunter Academy has trained warriors for over 1,000 years, Instructor Gorvik explained as they walked. "We fight the things that threaten all civilized worlds. void beasts that eat entire planets, machine armies that want to destroy all life, pirates who steal from peaceful traders. They entered a large room filled with weapons, swords, guns, shields, and things Minji had never seen before hung on the walls. The instructor stopped in the center of the room. Each species has natural advantages, he continued. Vorthok have strength and armor, Kaleri have speed and reflexes, Nixari have mind powers and can see the future. Humans. He paused and looked at the 4 human cadets. Humans are new to the galaxy. You're still learning what you can do. He walked to a wall covered with different types of weapons. Choose your primary weapon. Cadets, choose wisely. Your life will depend on it. The other cadets rushed forward. Eagerly, the Vorthok warriors picked up massive swords and heavy shields. The Kaleri scouts chose long knives and lightweight guns. The Nexari mystics selected energy weapons that glowed with strange light. Minji stood back and watched. She did not rush forward like the others. She observed how each species moved, how they held their weapons, how they tested the weight and balance. Park Hyun-woo picked up a rifle with a long scope. "I've always been good at shooting," he explained to Lee Juan. Lee Juan chose a small computer device and a stun weapon. "Information is more powerful than muscles," she said. Kim Taeyong selected a standard energy sword and shield. "Basic equipment works best for leading others," he decided. Finally, Mingi stepped forward. She looked at the weapons for a long time. Then she picked up 2 simple fighting sticks, each about as long as her forearm. Korex, the Vorthok warrior, laughed again. "Fighting sticks against void beasts? You will be eaten in seconds." Minji did not respond. She simply tested the weight of the sticks in her hands, then nodded to the instructor. "Interesting choice," Gorvik said. "We will see how it works out." The instructor led them to their sleeping quarters. The rooms were small, but clean. Cadet had a bed, a desk, and a small closet. Minji's room was at the end of the hall, away from the others, as she unpacked her few belongings. She could hear the other cadets talking loudly in the hallway. They were excited, nervous, and eager to prove themselves. Some were already bragging about their combat skills. Minji sat on her bed and looked out the small window. She could see the training grounds below, where tomorrow they would begin their real education. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that she was here, she felt very small and very alone. There was a soft knock on her door. She opened it to find Lee Juan standing in the hallway. "Are you okay?" Juan asked. "You have been very quiet." "I am fine," Minji replied simply. "The other cadets are gathering in the common room. Do you want to join us?" Minji shook her head. "I need to rest. Tomorrow will be a long day." Giwan looked like she wanted to say more, but she just nodded. "Okay, but if you need anything, just ask. We humans should help each other here." After Jiwon left, Minji closed her door and sat back on her bed. She could still hear the voices of the other cadets echoing through the halls. They sounded confident and strong. She wondered if she had made a mistake coming here, but then she remembered why she was here. Earth needed hunters to protect it. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of threats that could destroy entire worlds. Someone had to stand against those threats. Someone had to learn how to fight them. Mingi lay down on her bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the real training would begin. Tomorrow, she would start learning how to become a hunter. She did not know that her silence would become her greatest strength. She did not know that her small size would become an advantage. She did not know that in a few weeks, she would do something that would shock everyone in the academy. For now, she was just a small, quiet human girl in a galaxy full of warriors. But sometimes the smallest things can grow into the greatest forces. The academy slept, and Minji slept with it, dreaming of the training to come. Part 2. The struggle begins. The alarm bell rang at 5 in the morning. Its loud sound echoed through the sleeping quarters, waking all the cadets at once. Minji opened her eyes and sat up quickly. She'd been awake for the past hour, but she pretended to sleep like the others. All cadets report to the training hall in 15 minutes. Instructor Gorvik's voice came through the speakers. Wear your training clothes. Bring your weapons. Do not be late. Minji dressed quickly in the gray training uniform all cadets wore. She picked up her 2 fighting sticks and ran to the training hall. She was the first one there. The training hall was enormous. The ceiling was so high that she could barely see it. The floor was covered with soft mats for fighting practice. Along the walls were machines for testing strength, speed, and reflexes. One by one, the other cadets entered the hall. The Vorthok warriors stomped in, their heavy feet making loud sounds on the floor. The Kalari scouts moved silently, like shadows. The Nexari mystics floated in, their feet barely touching the ground. Park Hyunwoo entered with his rifle on his back. He nodded to Minji when he saw her. Li Guan came in carrying her computer device and stun weapon. Kim Taeyong walked in with confidence. His energy soared at his side. Form lines, Instructor Gorvik commanded as he entered the hall. Tallest in back, shortest in front. The cadets quickly arranged themselves. The Vorthok warriors stood in the back row, towering over everyone else. The Kalari scouts and Nexari mystics formed the middle rows. The humans were in the front, and Minji was at the very front of everyone. Today you begin real training, Gorvik said, walking in front of the group. For the next 6 months, you will be pushed beyond your limits. You'll learn to fight enemies that want to kill you. You will learn to survive in places where death waits around every corner. He stopped in front of Minji. Some of you will quit. Some of you will fail. Some of you will get hurt. This is normal. This is necessary. The instructor moved to the center of the hall. We will start with basic physical tests. I need to know how strong you are, how fast you are, and how long you can fight before you get tired. He pointed to a machine in the corner. It looked like a metal wall with a target painted on it. It measures punching power. Each of you will hit the target as hard as you can. We will see who hits the hardest. The Vorthok warriors went first. Korek stepped up to the machine and pulled back his massive fist. When he punched the target, the entire machine shook. Numbers appeared on a screen above the target. Excellent power, Gorvik said, writing the number down. As expected from a Vorthok, the other Vorthok warriors took their turns. Each one hit the target with tremendous force. The machine shook and groaned with each impact. The Kalari scouts went next. They were much smaller than the Vorthok, but they were still stronger than they looked. Their punches were quick and precise. The Nexori mystics surprised everyone. They did not use their fists at all. Instead, they used their mind powers to push against the target. The machine detected their mental force and recorded the numbers. Finally, it was time for the humans. Park Hyunwoo stepped up first. He was the largest of the human cadets, with broad shoulders and strong arms. He hit the target with all his strength. The number that appeared was much smaller than the alien scores. Not bad for a human, Gorvik said, but his voice showed he was not impressed. Li Juan went next. She was smaller than Park Hyunwoo, and her score was lower. Kim Taeyong did better than Jiwon, but still much worse than the aliens. Then it was Minji's turn. She walked up to the machine and looked at the target. She was so small that she had to reach up to hit it properly. She pulled back her fist and punched as hard as she could. The number that appeared was the smallest of all. Several of the alien cadets laughed. Even some of the humans looked embarrassed. Is that your best effort, Cadet Han? Gorvik asked. Yes, sir, Minji replied quietly. I see. The instructor wrote down her score. We will need to work on your strength. The next test was for speed. The cadets had to run across the hall, touch the far wall, and run back. A timer measured how long each one took. The Kalari scouts were the fastest. They moved like lightning, their feet barely touching the ground. They finished the run in just a few seconds. The Vorthok warriors were the slowest. Their great size made them powerful, but it also made them slow. They finished the run, but it took them much longer. The Nexari mystics did not run at all. They floated across the hall using their mind powers. Gorvik allowed this because it was their natural way of moving. When the humans ran, they were faster than the Vorthok, but much slower than the Kalari. Park Hyunwoo was the fastest human, followed by Kim Taeyong, then Li Guan Mingi was last. Again, she ran as fast as she could, but her short legs could not keep up with the others. When she finished, She was breathing hard. Speed is very important in combat, Gorvik said as he wrote down the times. God, what he has. If you cannot move fast enough, you will be killed. The final test was for endurance. The cadets had to do exercises until they could not continue. Push-ups, sit-ups, and other movements that tested how long they could keep going. The Vorthok warriors were strong, but they got tired quickly. Their large bodies used a lot of energy. Colliery scouts could keep going for a long time, but they were not as strong. The Nexari mystics used their mind powers to help their bodies, which gave them an advantage. The humans struggled with this test. They were not as strong as the Vorthok, not as fast as the Colliery, and did not have mind powers like the Nexari. One by one, they had to stop the exercises. Park Hyunwoo lasted the longest among the humans. He was used to hard work and had trained his body well. Lee Kwan stopped next, followed by Kim Tae-young. Minji was the first human to give up. She tried to do as many exercises as she could, but her small body could not keep up with the demands. She had to stop after just a few minutes. "Is enough for today," Gorvik announced when all the tests were finished. "I have seen what each of you can do. Tomorrow, we will begin combat training." As the cadets left the training hall, Minji walked slowly behind the others. She had scored the lowest in every test. She felt disappointed and embarrassed. Lee Juan waited for her near the exit. "Do not worry about today," she said kindly. "These tests do not mean everything. We all have different strengths." "I do not think I have any strengths," Mingi replied sadly. "That is not true," Juan said. "You've got into this academy for a reason. The instructor saw something in you." But Minji was not so sure. She had wanted to be a hunter for as long as she could remember. She had dreamed of protecting Earth and fighting the enemies of the galaxy. But now she wondered if she was strong enough for this life. That evening, the cadets gathered in the common room to eat dinner. The room was filled with the sounds of conversation. The alien cadets talked about their home worlds and their families. The humans talked about Earth and their hopes for the future. Mingi sat at a table by herself, eating quietly. She watched the other cadets and listened to their conversations, but she did not join in. Kim Tae-young came over to her table. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked. Minji nodded and he sat down across from her. "You seem very quiet," he said. "Are you?" "Okay, I am fine," Minji replied, but her voice was soft and uncertain. "The first day is always hard," Kim Tae-young said. "Everyone feels overwhelmed, but we will get better with practice. Will we?" Minji asked. "The aliens are so much stronger and faster than us. How can we ever compete with them?" Kim Tae-young thought for a moment. "Maybe we do not need to compete with them. Maybe we need to find our own way to be strong." Minji looked at him with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "I mean that humans might have different kinds of strength. We might not be the biggest or the fastest, but we might have other abilities that are just as important." Before Minji could ask what he meant, Instructor Gorvik's voice came through the speakers again. "All cadets report to your quarters for rest period. Tomorrow we begin weapon training. You will need all your energy." The cadets finished their meals and went to their rooms. Minji lay on her bed and thought about what Kim Tae-young had said. What kind of strength could humans have that the aliens did not? She thought about the tests from that day. She had failed at strength, speed, and endurance. But she had watched everything carefully. She had seen how each species moved, how they used their natural abilities, how they approached each challenge. Maybe that was something. Maybe watching and learning was a kind of strength too. As she fell asleep, Mingi made a decision. She would not give up. She would find her own way to be strong. She would learn everything she could about fighting and hunting and protecting the galaxy. She did not know that her real education was just beginning. She did not know that her quiet watching would become her greatest weapon. She did not know that in a few weeks, she would surprise everyone, including herself. For now, she was just a small human girl who had failed her first day of training. But tomorrow was a new day and she would be ready for it. 3 weeks had passed since the first day of training. Every morning, the alarm rang at 5. Every day, the cadets practiced fighting, shooting, and survival skills. Every evening, they returned to their quarters tired and sore. Minji still. scored the lowest in most tests. She was still the weakest in strength exercises. She was still the slowest in running tests. But something was changing, even if no one else noticed it yet. In the morning combat training, Instructor Gorvik paired the cadets against each other for sparring practice. The matches were not meant to hurt anyone seriously, but they were still real fights. "Today we practice hand-to-hand combat," Gorvik announced. "No weapons. Use only your natural abilities and the techniques I have taught you." The Vorthok warriors dominated these matches. Their stone-like skin protected them from most attacks. Their massive strength let them throw opponents across the room. Orcs had not lost a single match in 3 weeks. The Kalari scouts were harder to hit. They moved so fast that their opponents could barely see them. They won their matches by avoiding attacks and striking at the perfect moment. The Nexari mystics used their mind powers to confuse their opponents. They could make enemies see things that were not there, forget what they were doing in the middle of a fight. The humans struggled in these matches. Park Hyunwoo was strong for a human, but he was still much weaker than the aliens. Lee Guan was smart and tried to use strategy, but she was too small to overpower her opponents. Kim Tae-young had good leadership skills, but that did not help him in one-on-one fights. Minji lost every match she fought. When she was paired against a Vorthok warrior, she was thrown to the ground in seconds. When she fought a Kalari scout, she could not even see the attacks coming. When she faced a Nexari mystic, she became confused and forgot what she was doing. But something strange was happening. Each time Minji lost, she lasted a little longer than before. When she fought Orcs for the second time, she avoided his first attack. When she faced the same Kalari scout again, she blocked one of his strikes. When she fought the Nexari mystic, she resisted the mind control for a few extra seconds. "You are improving, Cadet Han," Instructor Gorvik said after one particularly long match, "but you still have a long way to go." Minji nodded and said nothing, as always. She wiped the sweat from her face and went to sit with the other cadets. What the instructor did not know was that Minji was doing extra training every night. After the other cadets went to sleep, she would sneak back to the training hall. She would practice the movements she had seen during the day. She would repeat the techniques over and over until her muscles remembered them. The training hall had recording devices that captured every combat session. Minji had learned how to access these recordings. She would watch them on her small room computer, studying every movement, every technique, every mistake. She watched how Orcs used his weight to throw opponents. She studied how the Kalari scouts moved their feet to stay balanced while attacking. She analyzed how the Nexari mystics breathed and focused their minds before using their powers. "Why do you stay up so late?" Lee Guan asked one morning. She had noticed the dark circles under Minji's eyes. "I have trouble sleeping," Minji replied simply. It was not exactly a lie. She did have trouble sleeping, but it was because she was too excited about learning new techniques. Every night, she discovered something new about combat that she had not understood before. Kim Tae-young also noticed changes in Mingi. "You seem different lately," he said during lunch. "It's more focused." "I am just trying to improve," Mingi said, eating her food slowly. "We all are," Park Hyunwoo added. "Oh, but some of us are improving faster than others." He was right. Park Hyunwoo had become much better at shooting. His accuracy with his rifle was now almost as good as some of the alien cadets. Lee Guan had learned to use her computer device to hack into training systems and gather information about opponents. Kim Tae-young had started organizing the human cadets into effective teams. But Minji still appeared to be the weakest. She still lost her matches. She still scored poorly on tests. The other cadets had stopped expecting much from her. Only Instructor Gorvik seemed to notice the small changes. During one combat session, he watched Minji fight against a Kalari scout. The scout was much faster and stronger, and he won easily. But Gorvik saw something that others missed. "Interesting," he said quietly to himself. After the session, he reviewed the recording of Mingi's fight, watched it several times, studying her movements carefully. Then he compared it to recordings of her fights from the first week. The difference was subtle but clear. Minji was moving differently. Her techniques were changing. She was adapting. In the first week, she had fought like a typical human. She used basic punches and kicks that any human would know. But now, she was using techniques that looked familiar. Some of her movements resembled Vorthok fighting styles. Others looked like Kaleri techniques. Still others seemed to come from Nexari combat methods. How is this possible? Gorvik wondered aloud. He decided to watch Minji more carefully during training. What he saw surprised him even more. During weapons training, Minji would watch every demonstration with complete focus. When the instructor showed how to use a Vorthok warhammer, she memorized every detail. When they learned Kaleri knife fighting, she studied the footwork and hand positions. When they practiced Nexari energy weapon techniques, she observed how. They controlled their breathing and concentration, but she never practiced these techniques during class. She always used her simple fighting sticks. She always fought in her own basic style. She always lost her matches. Yet somehow, tiny elements of these other fighting styles were creeping into her movements. A Vorthok stance here, a Kaleri strike. There, a Nexari breathing pattern at the right moment. She is learning, Gorvik realized. Not just learning her own techniques. She is learning everything. The instructor decided to test his theory. During the next combat session, he paired Minji against opponents she had not fought before. He wanted to see if she would adapt to new challenges. The first opponent was a Nexari mystic named Yilix. He was known for his powerful mind control abilities. Most cadets became confused and helpless when fighting him. The match began, and Yilix immediately tried to take control of Minji's mind. But something unexpected happened. The attack, longer than usual. She shook her head and remained focused on the fight. "Impossible," Yilix said, surprised. "How did you resist my power?" Minji did not answer. Was too busy concentrating on the fight. She had learned from watching the Nexari mystics that they needed to focus their minds completely to use their powers. If she could distract Yilix, she might have a chance. She moved forward quickly, using a combination of Kalari's speed and Vorthok power. It was not perfect, but it was better than her usual technique. Yilix was caught off guard and stumbled backward. Of course he recovered quickly and won the match. But for the first time, Minji had actually surprised an opponent. She had made a Nexari mystic stumble. "Well done, Cadet Han," Instructor Gorvik said after the match. "You are beginning to show improvement." The other cadets looked at Minji with new interest. Even Orcs, the proud Vorthok warrior, seemed curious about what had happened. "How did you resist his mind control?" Kim Tae-young asked later. "I just tried to stay focused," Minji replied. But the truth was more complex. Been studying the Nexari mystics for weeks. She had learned that their mind powers worked best when their opponents were afraid or confused. By staying calm and focused, she had made herself a harder target. That night, Minji returned to her secret training as usual. But now she felt different. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt like she was making real progress. She practiced the combination of techniques she had used against Yilix. She worked on blending Kaleri speed with Vorthok power. She experimented with using Nexari breathing methods to stay calm during combat. None of these techniques were perfect yet. She was still learning, still experimenting. But she was beginning to understand something important. Each species had developed their fighting styles based on their natural abilities. But what if someone could learn from all of them? What if someone could combine the best parts of every fighting style into something new? She practiced in the empty training hall. Minji began to imagine what that might look like. A fighting style that used Vorthok strength when strength was needed, Kaleri speed when speed was required, and Nexari mental focus when concentration was important. It was an exciting idea, but it was also dangerous. If the instructors found out what she was doing, they might think she was being disrespectful to the other species. If the other cadets discovered her secret training, they might feel betrayed. For now, she would continue to watch and learn in silence. She would keep practicing in secret. She would keep losing her matches during the day while growing stronger at night. She did not know that. Instructor Gorvik was already beginning to suspect her secret. She did not know that some of the other cadets were starting to notice small changes in her fighting style. She did not know that in just a few more weeks, her secret would be revealed in a way that would shock everyone. For now, she was still just the quiet human girl who lost every fight. but inside she was becoming something new. The fourth week of training brought new challenges. Instructor Gorvik announced that the cadets would now face holographic enemies in combat simulations. These were not real opponents, but they could cause real pain if the cadets made mistakes. Simulation Room will test everything you have learned, Gorvik explained, as he led the cadets to a new part of the academy. The enemies you face will be based on real threats from across the galaxy. Void beasts, machine warriors, space pirates, and other dangers. Now, the simulation room was unlike anything the cadets had seen before. Now, the walls, floor, and ceiling were covered with millions of tiny lights. When the simulation started, these lights would create realistic images of any environment or enemy. You will work in teams of 5, the instructor continued. Each team must complete a mission. Some teams will rescue hostages. Others will destroy enemy bases. Some will hunt dangerous creatures. The cadets were divided into groups. Most teams were made up of cadets from the same species. The Vorthok warriors formed one team. The Cavalry scouts made another. The Nexari mystics worked together as a third group, but there were only 4 human cadets, so they needed one more member for their team. Instructor Gorvik assigned them a young Kalari scout named Zira. She was smaller than the other Kalari, but she was known for being very fast and clever. Great Park Hyunwoo whispered, "Now we have to prove ourselves to an alien teammate too." Human team consisted of Park Hyunwoo with his rifle, Lee Juwon with her computer and stun weapon, Kim Tae-yoon with his sword and shield, Minji with her fighting sticks, and Zero with her twin knives. "I hope you humans can keep up," Zero said with a slight smile. She was not being mean, but she was clearly doubtful about their abilities. "We will do our best," Kim Tae-young replied diplomatically. Their first mission was to infiltrate an enemy base and rescue captured civilians. The simulation began, and suddenly the room transformed. The walls became metal corridors. The lights created the illusion of a spaceship interior. Emergency alarms echoed through the air. Remember Gorvik's voice came through speakers? That holographic enemies can stun you with energy weapons or knock you unconscious with physical attacks. If you are defeated, you will feel real pain and be removed from the simulation. The team moved carefully through the simulated corridors. Zira scouted ahead using her natural speed and stealth abilities. Lee Juwon used her computer to hack into the ship's systems and find the location of the prisoners. Park Hyunwoo watched for enemies with his rifle ready. Kim Tae-young coordinated the team's movements. Minji followed quietly behind the others, watching everything. She observed how Zira moved without making sound. She studied how Lee Juwon's fingers flew over her computer keyboard. She noticed how Park Hyunwoo positioned himself to get the best shooting angles. They found the first group of enemies guarding a checkpoint. There were 3 holographic soldiers with energy weapons. They looked real enough to fool the eye completely. "I will take the one on the left," Park Hyunwoo whispered. "Zira, can you handle the one on the right?" "Easy," Zero replied confidently. "Kim Tae-young and I will take the middle one together," Lee Guan said. "Mingi, you stay back and watch for." More enemies. The attack began. Park Hyunwoo's rifle shot struck his target perfectly, and the holographic soldier disappeared. Zira moved like lightning, her knives flashing as she defeated her opponent before he could react. But the middle soldier was more difficult. He fired his energy weapon at Lee Guan, who barely dodged the beam. Kim Tae-young charged forward with his shield raised, but the enemy was too quick. The soldier's weapon hit Kim Tae-young in the shoulder, and he cried out in pain as he fell. "To the ground! Tae-young is down," Lee Guan shouted. She tried to use her stun weapon, but the enemy soldier was too far away. The holographic soldier turned his weapon toward Lee Juwon. She was trapped in the open corridor with nowhere to hide. The enemy began to charge his weapon for a final shot. Suddenly, Minji moved. She ran forward faster than anyone had ever seen her move before. But this was not just speed. Movement was fluid and controlled, like water flowing around obstacles. She dodged the enemy's energy beam by twisting her body in a way that seemed impossible, before the soldier could fire again. Minji was beside him. She struck with her fighting sticks. But her technique was completely different from anything she had shown in training. Her first strike came from below. Like a Vorthok power attack, hitting the enemy's weapon and knocking it from his hands. Her second strike was lightning fast, like a calorie technique, hitting the soldier in 3 different places almost at the same time. Her third move used perfect balance and timing like a Nexari mystic, as she spun around and struck the enemy's weak point with precision. The holographic soldier disappeared. Defeated, for a moment, complete silence filled the simulation room. Then the lights returned to normal, and the simulation ended. Mission incomplete, Gorvik's voice announced. Team failed to rescue all prisoners due to casualties. But nobody was thinking about the mission results. All eyes were on Minji.
Oh.
Did you do that? Zira asked, her voice filled with amazement. That was not human fighting style. That was not any single fighting style, Park Hyun-woo said, still staring at Minji in shock. That was like ... 3 different styles at once? Lee Juan helped. Kim Tae-young to his feet. His shoulder was sore from the energy blast, but he was not seriously hurt. Minji, he said slowly, where did you learn to fight like that? Minji looked around at her teammates. They were all staring at her with expressions of surprise and confusion. She realized that her secret was starting to come out. I have been practicing, she said quietly. Practicing what? Zira demanded. Those were Kalari techniques mixed with Vorthok power moves and Nexari precision strikes. What do you know techniques from other species? Before Minji could answer, Instructor Gorvik entered the simulation room. His 4 eyes were focused entirely on her. Cadet Han, he said in a voice that revealed nothing. Please remain after the session. I need to speak with you privately. The other cadets were dismissed, but they left reluctantly. They kept looking back at Mingi with curious and puzzled expressions. When the room was empty, except for Mingi and the instructor Gorvik walked slowly around her. His 4 eyes studied her from every angle. That was very interesting, Cadet Han, he said finally. Very interesting indeed. Sir, I can explain, Minji began. No need to explain yet, Gorvik. Interrupted, but I have some questions. How long have you been studying combat recordings? Minji's eyes widened. She had not realized that the instructor knew about her secret activities. How long, he repeated. Since the first week, sir, she admitted quietly. I see, and you have. Been practicing at night in the training hall? Yes, sir. Without permission? Yes, sir. Minji prepared herself for punishment. Unauthorized use of academy facilities was against the rules, but Gorvik did not seem angry. Instead, he seemed thoughtful. Show me, he said simply. Sir, show me what you have learned. Fight me, Minji's heart stopped. Sir, I cannot fight you. You are an instructor. You have hundreds of years of experience. This is not a real fight, Gorvik said. This is a demonstration. I want to see what you have taught yourself. He moved to the center of the room and took a fighting stance. Come, show me these techniques you have been practicing. Minji hesitated. Everything inside her said this was a bad idea, but the instructor was giving her a direct order. She picked up her fighting sticks and moved to face him. Gorvik was much larger than her, much stronger and much more experienced. But something had changed inside Minji over the past few weeks. She felt different now, more confident, more complete. Gorvik commanded. Minji moved, but this time she did not hold back. She used everything she had learned from watching the different species. She flowed like a Kalari scout, struck like a Vorthok warrior, thought like a Nexari mystic. For 30 seconds, she fought the most experienced instructor in the academy. Did not win, of course. Gorvik was too skilled and too powerful. But she lasted much longer than anyone expected. She forced him to work harder than he had planned. When the demonstration ended, both of them were breathing hard. Remarkable, Gorvik said, looking at her with new respect. You have created something that should not be possible, sir. You have learned to combine the fighting techniques of multiple species. This has never been done before. Most beings can only master the techniques that match their natural abilities. Minji did not know what to say. But you are making a dangerous mistake, the instructor continued. You are trying to use techniques your body was not designed for. Hurt you. It could also anger the other species if they think you are copying them disrespectfully. I did not mean any disrespect, sir, Mingy said quickly. I just wanted to become stronger. I know, Gorvik said more gently. And you have become stronger. Much stronger. But you must be careful how you use this new ability. He walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at her. Continue your training, Cadet Han, but be discreet and be ready. Soon you will need to show everyone what you have learned. After he left, Minji stood alone in the simulation room. She felt excited and terrified at the same time. Her secret was no longer completely secret. The instructor knew what she was doing, but he had not stopped her. He had told her to continue. That meant something big was coming. Something that would test everything she had learned. She did not know that in just one more week, she would face the greatest challenge of her life. She did not know that all her secret training would be put to the ultimate test. For now, she only knew that she was no longer the same weak cadet who had arrived at the academy. She was becoming something new, something unique, something that would soon shock the entire galaxy. The 5th week began with tension in the air. Word about Minji's performance in the simulation had spread among the cadets. Some were curious about her sudden improvement. Others were suspicious. A few were openly doubtful. I still do not believe it, Korek said loudly during breakfast. A small human cannot learn Vorthok fighting techniques. It is impossible. I saw it myself, Zero replied. She had become Minji's strongest defender among the alien cadets. She moved like a Kalari, but with power like a Vorthok, I've never seen anything like it. Maybe she got lucky, suggested another Vorthok warrior. One good moment does not make someone a real fighter. Minji sat at her usual table, eating quietly and listening to the conversations around her. She had returned to her silent behavior. After the simulation incident, she answered questions when asked directly, but she did not volunteer information about her training methods. The human cadets were excited about Minji's progress, but they were also confused. Park Hyunwoo had tried several times to get her to explain how she had learned the alien techniques. She always gave simple answers. I watch and practice was all she would say. But how do you practice Kalari speed movements when you are not a Kalari? Li Guan asked. I try my best to copy what I see, Minji replied. Kim Tae-young understood that she was being deliberately vague. She does not want to explain her methods, he told the other humans privately. Maybe she thinks we will copy her, or maybe she is afraid the aliens will get angry. The truth was more complex than they realized. Minji was afraid that if she explained everything, the instructors might decide her methods were wrong or dangerous. She was also worried that the alien cadets might feel insulted if they knew she was copying their most sacred fighting techniques. Instructor. Gorvik had been watching Minji carefully all week. He noticed that she had returned to losing most of her practice matches. She seemed to be deliberately hiding her new abilities again. During one sparring session, she fought against a Nexari mystic and lost quickly, just like in the old days. But Gorvik saw small details that others missed. Her movements were more controlled now. Her breathing was steadier. She was choosing to lose, not being forced to lose. Interesting, he said to himself. She is still learning, but now she is also learning when to hide her abilities. This made the instructor both impressed and concerned. A warrior who could hide their true strength was dangerous, but a cadet who deceived their instructors was breaking academy rules. On the 5th day of the week, Gorvik decided to force the issue. Today we will have a special exercise, he announced to all the cadets. In the main training hall, I want to test how well you have learned to respect your instructors and follow academy traditions. The cadets stood in formation, wondering what this new exercise would involve. Some of you have been performing well in your training, Gorvik continued. Others have been struggling. But I have noticed that one cadet seems to have very little respect for the learning process. His 4 eyes scanned the group and stopped on Minji. Several cadets turned to look at her. Cadet Han, Gorvik said loudly, you have been at this academy for 5 weeks. In that time, you have shown minimal improvement in your combat skills. You rarely speak during tactical discussions. You do not participate actively in group exercises. Minji stood at attention and said nothing, as always. Furthermore, the instructor continued, his voice growing louder, you seem to think that you can learn advanced combat techniques without proper instruction or permission. Now all the cadets were staring at Minji. Some looked confused. Others seemed excited to see what would happen next. This attitude is disrespectful to your instructors and to the cadets from other species who have shared their knowledge with you, Gorvik declared. It is time for you to demonstrate exactly what you think you have learned. Park Hyunwoo stepped forward. Sir, perhaps this is not the appropriate time for silence. Cadet Park, Gorvik commanded without looking away from Minji. Cadet Han will demonstrate her supposed skills in front of all her peers. He walked to the center of the training hall. You will fight me, Cadet Han. A full combat demonstration. No practice weapons, no safety restrictions. Real combat rules. Shocked silence filled the hall. Fighting an instructor was almost unheard of. Fighting Instructor Gorvik was considered nearly impossible. He was a legend, a warrior who had survived battles that had killed thousands of others. Sir Kim Taeyong spoke up. Surely a different demonstration would be more appropriate. Cadet Han is still learning. She claims to have learned enough to copy techniques from species across the galaxy. Gorvik replied coldly. That is true. Then she should be able to demonstrate those techniques. He looked directly at Minji. Unless, of course, she was lying about her abilities. The challenge hung in the air like a threat. Everyone in the hall understood what was happening. This was not just a combat demonstration. This was a test of Minji's character, her honesty, and her right to remain at the academy. If she refused to fight, she would be admitting that her previous performance was just luck. She would likely be dismissed from the academy in disgrace. If she accepted the challenge, she would have to fight the most dangerous instructor in the school. She would probably be defeated quickly and embarrassed in front of everyone. Well, Cadet Han? Gorvik asked. What will it be? Will you demonstrate your supposed skills, or will you admit that you have been wasting everyone's time? To Mingi, the alien cadets whispered among themselves. Some seemed eager to see her fail. Others appeared worried about what might happen to her. The human cadets looked terrified. They knew that Minji had shown amazing abilities in the simulation, but fighting Instructor Gorvik was completely different. He was not a holographic enemy that would disappear when defeated. He was a real warrior with centuries of experience. Lee. Kiwon wanted to step forward and defend her friend, but she knew that interfering would only make things worse for Minji Zira. The Kalari scout who had witnessed Minji's abilities firsthand watched with intense curiosity. She wanted to see if the small human could really fight as well as she had shown before. Korax and the other Vorthok warriors seemed pleased. They had never believed that a human could learn their techniques properly. Now they would see the truth. For a long moment, Mingi stood perfectly still. She looked around the hall at all the faces staring at her. Some were hostile. Some were worried, were simply curious. Then she looked at Instructor Gorvik. He was waiting for her answer with his arms crossed and his 4 eyes fixed on her face. Mingi realized that this moment had been coming since her first day at the academy. All her secret training, all her watching and learning, all her quiet preparation had been leading to this confrontation. She could not avoid it any longer. She could not hide her abilities anymore. She could not pretend to be weak. What rules of engagement, sir? She asked quietly. The question surprised everyone. They had expected her to refuse, to make excuses, or to beg for mercy. Instead, she was asking about the technical details of the fight. Instructor Gorvik smiled grimly. Full combat protocols. Cadet Han. The match continues until one of us cannot continue fighting. Several cadets gasped. Full combat protocols meant that serious injury was possible. It meant that the fight would be brutal and dangerous. Will weapons be permitted? Mingi asked, her voice still calm and quiet. You may use your fighting sticks, Gorvik replied. I will fight unarmed, as is my preference. This was not as generous as it sounded. Gorvik's natural Thraxian strength and his centuries of unarmed combat experience made him more dangerous without weapons than most fighters were with them. Understood, sir, Mingi said simply. She walked to the equipment rack and picked up her 2 fighting sticks. They were simple wooden weapons, smooth and worn from years of use. They looked tiny and inadequate compared to the massive alien weapons. Around them, The other cadets formed a wide circle around the combat area. Everyone wanted to watch, but nobody wanted to be too close to the fight. Park Hyun-woo moved closer to Lee Ju-an. "This is insane," he whispered. "He is going to hurt her badly." "Maybe Lee," Gu-an replied quietly. "But did you see her face when she accepted the challenge? She did not look afraid." Kim Tae-young was studying Minji's posture as she prepared for the fight. "She looks different," he said thoughtfully. "More confident, more ready." Zira was thinking the same thing. The human girl she had seen in the simulation had moved with incredible skill. Could she do it again under this kind of pressure? Orcs and the Vorthok warriors were already discussing how quickly the fight would end. 10 seconds, one of them predicted. "Out, maybe 15 if she runs around the hall." But some of the Nexari mystics were less certain. They used their mental abilities to sense the emotions and thoughts of others. When they focused on Minji, they detected something unexpected. "She is not afraid," one of them whispered to another. "She should be terrified, but she is calm, almost excited." Instructor Gorvik took his position in the center of the hall. He removed his instructor's jacket and stood in a classic Thraxian fighting stance. His muscles were visible beneath. His dark red skin and his scars told the story of 100 battles. Minji walked to the opposite side of the combat area. She was so small compared to the instructor that she low. The training hall was completely silent. Every cadet held their breath as they watched the two fighters face each other. Instructor Gorvik stood like a mountain of muscle and experience. Minji looked like a small bird preparing to fight a dragon.
"Begin,"
Gorvik had said, and now he waited to see what the small human would do. For 3 seconds, neither fighter moved. They studied each other, measuring distance and timing. Then Gorvik decided to end the fight quickly. He charged forward with the speed and power that had made him famous across the galaxy. His first attack was a classic Thraxian power strike. Designed to knock out an opponent in one hit, his massive fist moved toward Minji's head with enough force to break stone. But Minji was not there when the punch arrived. She had moved at the last possible moment, flowing around the attack like water flowing around a rock. Her movement was so smooth and natural that it looked almost like dancing. Gorvik's eyes widened with surprise. His punch had hit nothing but air. He spun around to locate his opponent and found her standing calmly behind him. "Possible," whispered Orcs from the crowd. "How did she move that fast?" But the fight was just beginning. Gorvik attacked again, this time with a series of quick strikes. He used techniques that had defeated thousands of opponents over his long career, but every attack missed. Minji seemed to predict exactly where each strike would go, and moved out of the way just in time. What amazed the watching cadets? It's not just that she was avoiding the attacks, it was how she was avoiding them. Each movement she made was perfect. For defending against that specific type of attack, when Gorvik used a Thraxian power technique, she moved like a Kaleri scout, using speed and agility to escape. When he switched to faster Kaleri-style strikes, she responded with Vorthok-style defensive positioning, using her body weight and stance to deflect the attacks. When he tried Nexari mental techniques to confuse her, she breathed like a Nexari mystic and kept her mind clear and focused. "She is using our techniques," said Yelix, the Nexari mystic. "But she is using them better than we do." "That is not possible," Orcs growled. "Humans cannot master Vorthok fighting methods." But as they watched, it became clear that Minji was not just copying techniques from different species. She was combining them in ways that should have been impossible. When Gorvik threw a powerful overhead strike, Minji used Kaleri speed to dodge, then immediately switched to Vorthok power to counterattack. When he tried to grab her, she used Nexari mental focus to stay calm while employing Thraxian defensive techniques to break free. "How is she doing this?" Park Hyun-woo asked quietly. "She has been watching us," Zira realized suddenly. "All this time she has been studying how each species fights. She has learned from all of us." The fight continued, and something incredible began to happen. Minji stopped just defending and started attacking. Her first real attack came when Gorvik left himself open for a moment. She moved forward with Kalari speed, struck with Vorthok power, and aimed with Nexari precision. Her fighting stick hit the instructor's shoulder, and for the first time in the match, he staggered backward. She hit him, Li Guan said in amazement. She actually hit Instructor Gorvik. But Minji was not finished. As Gorvik recovered from the first hit, she was already moving into her next attack. She flowed from one fighting style to another, like she was changing languages in the middle of a conversation. She used a Thraxian defensive stance to block his counterattack, then immediately switched to a Kalari offensive technique to strike. At his weak points, when he tried to use his superior reach, she employed Vorthok positioning to get inside his guard. When he attempted to overwhelm her with multiple attacks, she used Nexari mental focus to stay calm and respond perfectly to each threat. The watching cadets began to understand what they were seeing. This was not just a human fighting an instructor. This was something completely new. Minji had created a fighting style that borrowed the best elements from every species in the galaxy. She is not trying to be like us, Yelek said with wonder. She is being herself, but using what she learned from us to become stronger. The fight reached its climax when Gorvik, frustrated by his inability to hit his opponent, decided to use his most powerful technique. It was a Thraxian combat method that had never failed him in over 200 years of fighting. He gathered all his strength and launched a devastating combination attack. Multiple strikes came from different angles, each one capable of ending the fight instantly, but Minji was ready. She had been watching Gorvik's techniques throughout the fight, learning his patterns and timing. As his final combination began, she moved. She did not just block or dodge the attacks, she turned them against him. The first strike she redirected, using Kalari flowing techniques, sending his own force back toward him. The second attack she absorbed with Vorthok defensive methods, then used the energy to power her own counterattack. The third strike she avoided with Nexari predictive abilities, moving out of the way before the attack even began. Then, while Gorvik was still recovering from his failed combination, Minji struck back with everything she had learned. Her attack was a perfect synthesis of all the fighting styles she had studied. She moved with Kalaria grace, struck with Vorthok power, aimed with Nexari precision, and controlled her breathing with Thraxian discipline. Her fighting sticks moved so fast they became a blur. She hit pressure points that only a Nexari mystic would know about, using Kalari speed and Vorthok strength to make each strike more effective than it should have been in less than 10 seconds. The most feared instructor in the Galactic Hunter Academy was overwhelmed. Gorvik found himself unable to defend against attacks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. His own techniques were being used against him, but in ways he had never imagined possible. Finally, Minji's last strike connected with a pressure point on his neck that temporarily paralyzed his nervous system. Gorvik collapsed to the ground, completely unable to move. The training hall was silent for a full minute. The small, quiet human girl had defeated the legendary instructor Gorvik in single combat. Minji stood over her fallen instructor, breathing hard but still ready to continue fighting if necessary. Then she realized what she had done and immediately dropped her fighting sticks. "Sir," she said, kneeling beside Gorvik. "Are you hurt?" "I am sorry. I did not mean to. I am fine, cadet," Gorvik said weakly as feeling returned to his body. "Just..." Surprised, Minji helped him sit up. The paralysis was already wearing off, and he would be completely recovered in a few minutes. That was... double quotes. He paused, searching for the right words. That was the most remarkable demonstration of combat skill I have ever witnessed. He looked around the hall at all the stunned cadets. What you have just seen is something that should not be possible. This human has learned to combine the fighting techniques of multiple species into a single, unified style. Slowly, he got to his feet with Minji's help. She has not just copied our techniques. She has understood them, improved them, and made them work together in ways we never imagined. Korak stepped forward from the crowd. The massive Vorthok warrior looked at Minji with new respect. "How did you learn our power techniques? Humans do not have our strength." "I do not have your strength," Minji agreed quietly. "But I learned to use my whole body to create power the way you do. I learned to use timing and positioning to make my strikes stronger. Zira moved closer as well. And our speed techniques? How did you master Kalari movement? I practiced every night, Minji replied simply. I watched recordings of your training sessions. I studied how you move your feet, how you balance your body, how you control your breathing. Yelix, the Nexari mystic, was amazed. But our mental techniques require psychic abilities. How did you learn to resist mind control? I learned to stay calm and focused, Minji explained. I practiced meditation and breathing exercises. I cannot read minds like you, but I can keep my own mind clear and strong. Instructor Gorvik nodded approvingly. She has done something that we thought was impossible. She has shown us that the barriers between species are not as absolute as we believed. He addressed all the cadets in the hall. Each species develops fighting techniques based on their natural abilities. We assumed that only members of each species could master their own techniques. But this human has proven us wrong. Park Hyun-woo spoke up. But how is that possible? We humans are not as strong or fast as the aliens. That is exactly why it is possible, Gorvik replied. Because humans are not naturally superior in any single area, they must learn to be adaptable. They must find ways to overcome their limitations by learning from others. He looked at Mingi with deep respect. This cadet has shown us something important about humanity. Humans may not have the natural advantages of other species, but they have something else. They have the ability to learn, to adapt, and to become more than the sum of their parts. Li Guan stepped forward. Minji, why did you keep this secret? Or why did you not tell us what you were learning? I was afraid, Mingi admitted quietly. I thought you might be angry that I was copying your techniques. I thought the instructors might say I was being disrespectful. Disrespectful? Zira laughed. You have honored our techniques by learning them so well. You have made them part of something beautiful and new. Instructor Gorvik raised his hand for attention. From this day forward, Cadet Han will be recognized as the top combat student in this academy. She has earned the respect of her peers and instructors through dedication, intelligence, and skill. He paused and looked around the hall. But more importantly, she has shown us something about the future of galactic cooperation. If humans can learn from all species and combine their knowledge into something new, then perhaps all species can learn from each other in ways we never imagined. The cadets began to cheer. Aliens and humans together celebrated Minji's achievement. She had proven that barriers between species could be overcome through understanding and hard work. From that day forward, the Galactic Hunter Academy began, teaching new courses in cross-species combat techniques. Students were encouraged to learn from each other and to combine different fighting styles. Minji became a legend, not just as a fighter, but as a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together. She had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength was not in trying to be like other species, but in learning from them while remaining uniquely human. The quiet girl, who had once seemed like the weakest cadet, had become the strongest of all, and in doing so, she had changed the future of the galaxy forever.